Did you know that most traders fail within the first 5 years, often because they try to predict the future instead of embracing uncertainty? What if there was a better way to approach risk and investing that didn't rely on perfect predictions? In today's video, we'll explore key ideas from Nicholas Taleb's Fooled by Randomness. You'll learn how to avoid common mistakes, like overestimating your ability to foresee the future, and how to build a mindset that works in an unpredictable world. We'll break down practical ways you can apply these insights to your own financial decisions and everyday life. By the end of the video, you'll have a clearer understanding of how to make smarter, more resilient choices with your money, even when the future feels uncertain. The danger of invisible luck, one of the core ideas in Fooled by Randomness, is that we often celebrate success without understanding how much of it is driven by luck rather than skill. Taleb refers to the invisible lucky, those individuals whose achievements are largely the result of chance, not mastery. Imagine you see a person who always wins at a coin toss. You might think they have a secret technique or special talent, but in reality, their success might simply be a streak of randomness that doesn't reflect any underlying skill. This misjudgment is particularly common in areas like investing, where people idolize top fund managers without recognizing that many of them succeeded because they happened to be in the right place at the right time. If 10,000 people invest, some are bound to outperform the others simply by chance. However, we rarely hear about those who failed, creating a skewed perception of success. A relatable analogy is watching professional sports. Fans often idolize athletes who have an incredible season, attributing their success entirely to hard work and talent. While effort and skill matter, no one talks about the role of luck, like avoiding injuries, catching a good break during a game, or being in a strong team environment. The same principle applies to the world of finance. We celebrate the winners, but overlook the losers, even though both groups face the same unpredictable randomness. To apply this to daily life, remember to evaluate success with a critical eye. Before you copy someone's financial strategy or career path, ask yourself how much of their success could be luck. A practical way to counteract this bias is to focus on consistent small wins rather than chasing big, risky outcomes. For instance, instead of gambling on a single high-risk investment, diversify your portfolio to minimize the influence of chance. This way, you don't just rely on being one of the lucky few, you create a sustainable path to success. Are you liking the content? Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps and means a lot. 2. The difference between resilience and financial fragility. Many financial strategies may look solid on the surface, but they crumble under the weight of unexpected events. Taleb emphasizes the critical difference between appearing strong and being genuinely resilient. It's like a beautifully designed glass sculpture. It may look impressive and even sturdy, but a small nudge can shatter it into pieces. Financial fragility operates the same way. A seemingly solid plan can collapse under a single, unexpected shock. Consider your savings as a safety net. Some people save just enough to get by, assuming their income will remain steady, like balancing on a tightrope with no room for error. If a gust of wind, a job loss, or medical emergency hits, the fall is devastating. On the other hand, someone with a broader net, made by saving more or diversifying income sources, can absorb the shock and recover more quickly. Resilience in finance comes from preparing for turbulence, not assuming the skies will always be clear. This idea also applies to how we invest. Many portfolios are built for steady markets, much like a house designed for sunny weather. But what happens when the storm comes? A resilient financial strategy includes diversified assets, emergency funds, and limited exposure to high-risk ventures. It's the equivalent of building a hurricane-proof house. Even if storms are rare, the preparation pays off when disaster strikes. To incorporate this into daily life, start by examining your financial setup. Are your expenses tightly matched to your income, leaving no room for the unexpected? Build a financial buffer by setting aside a portion of your earnings each month, no matter how small. Additionally, review your investments and ensure you're not overly reliant on one sector or asset type. It's better to have a mix of sturdy materials in your financial house than a flashy but fragile foundation. Uncertainty as a competitive advantage. Uncertainty is often seen as a threat, a storm cloud looming over carefully made plans. But for those who learn to navigate it, uncertainty becomes less of an obstacle and more of a tool. Imagine you're in a card game where the rules occasionally change. Instead of trying to predict every twist, the smartest players adapt quickly, minimizing their risks and positioning themselves to take advantage of opportunities when they arise. In the financial world, this means recognizing that markets are inherently unpredictable. Traders who accept this reality don't fall into the trap of overconfidence. They avoid betting everything on a single outcome and instead look for opportunities where the potential upside far outweighs the downside. It's like planting seeds in multiple types of soil. You don't know which will yield the best crop, but you increase your chances of success by diversifying. Uncertainty also rewards flexibility. Picture a sailor in open waters. A rigid, preset course might seem efficient, but when winds shift, a flexible navigator adjusts the sails and finds a better path. Similarly, building a financial strategy that embraces uncertainty means keeping some resources liquid and being ready to pivot. This might mean maintaining a portion of your savings in cash or low-risk assets, so you're prepared to act on unexpected opportunities, like a market dip or a new investment. To make this actionable, start by assessing your current approach to risk. Are you clinging to rigid plans, hoping the world will bend to your expectations? Instead, create a system that thrives on uncertainty. Diversify your investments, and when making decisions, consider the potential for asymmetric returns, situations where the loss is limited, but the gain could be substantial. By doing so, you're not just surviving in uncertainty, you're turning it into a strategic advantage. 4. The trap of noise in investment decisions. Markets are like a busy street filled with honking cars, pedestrians, and random events. It's easy to get caught up in every sound, thinking each honk signals something important. Taleb warns us that much of what we hear in the financial world is just noise, random short-term fluctuations that don't carry any real meaning. Acting on this noise is like rearranging your entire living room every time someone suggests a new interior design trend. You expend energy without creating long-term value. Short-term market movements can be deceiving. Imagine checking the scale multiple times a day while trying to lose weight. The small fluctuations might make you believe you're making progress or losing ground, but they're more about water retention than fat loss. Similarly, daily stock prices often reflect temporary factors rather than meaningful trends. Making investment decisions based on these ups and downs is not only stressful, but can lead to poor outcomes. To navigate the noise, step back and focus on the bigger picture. It's like driving on a foggy road. Instead of reacting to every shadow, you rely on the broader outlines of the path ahead. In investing, this means prioritizing long-term fundamentals over short-term chatter. Look at a company's overall performance, the industry's future, and broader economic trends. These elements act like a reliable compass, guiding you through the fog of daily volatility. One way to put this into practice is to limit how often you check your portfolio. Set a schedule, like once a month or quarter, to evaluate your investments. This reduces the temptation to act impulsively based on noise. Additionally, when presented with new information, ask yourself, does this change my understanding of the long-term value of my investments? If the answer is no, then treat it as what it is, background noise, not a call to action. The dangers of the personal black swan life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. Taleb's concept of the black swan applies not just to global crises, but also to personal financial catastrophes, events that are rare, unpredictable, and devastating. It's like building a sandcastle too close to the shore on a seemingly calm day. One unexpected wave can wipe it all away, leaving you scrambling to rebuild. Many people make the mistake of assuming these waves won't come, leaving their financial plans vulnerable. Personal black swans could be anything from a sudden job loss, an expensive medical emergency, or a dramatic economic downturn. These are events you can't predict, but you can prepare for. Ignoring the possibility of such scenarios is like driving without car insurance because you assume you'll never have an accident. You might save money in the short term, but one incident can leave you financially stranded. The key is to build buffers and diversify your resources. Think of it as reinforcing your house against all kinds of weather. Even if you live in a sunny climate, having a sturdy roof, good insulation, and emergency supplies ensures you're ready for a storm. Financially, this means maintaining an emergency fund, investing in diversified assets, and avoiding excessive debt. These measures create a safety net, allowing you to weather unforeseen challenges without losing everything. One practical step is to adopt what Taleb refers to as the barbell strategy. Allocate most of your resources to ultra-safe investments or savings while taking small, calculated risks with the remainder. For example, keep a substantial emergency fund in a high-yield savings account while investing a smaller portion in growth opportunities like stocks or entrepreneurial ventures. This way, you're protected from financial collapse while still leaving room for growth. By planning for the unexpected, you ensure that even if a personal black swan appears, it won't sink your financial ship. 6. The illusion of control, believing we know more than we do. There's a certain comfort in feeling like we're in control, but Taleb warns that this sense of control is often just an illusion. Investors, in particular, tend to overestimate their ability to predict market movements or interpret complex data. It's like driving on a foggy road where visibility is limited. You might feel confident because you can see a few meters ahead, but that doesn't mean you're prepared for the sharp curve or the stalled car hidden just beyond the mist. This overconfidence leads people to make bold decisions based on incomplete or misleading information. For example, someone might believe they've identified a trend in the stock market after observing a few days of price increases, not realizing that the movement could be random noise. It's akin to thinking you've mastered the weather because it's been sunny for a week, only to be caught off guard by an unexpected storm. One of the most dangerous aspects of the illusion of control is how it encourages risky behavior. If you believe you understand the market better than you actually do, you're more likely to take on excessive risk. Imagine a gambler convinced they've cracked the code to winning at roulette. Despite the inherent randomness of the game, they double down, risking everything on a false sense of certainty. The same principle applies to investors who pour money into speculative assets or make trades based on gut feelings rather than sound strategy. To counter this illusion, it's essential to acknowledge the limits of your knowledge. Embrace humility and adopt systems that account for uncertainty. For instance, instead of trying to predict which stock will outperform, focus on diversification. Spread your investments across different sectors and asset classes to reduce risk. Think of it like packing for a trip. Instead of assuming it will always be sunny, you bring both a raincoat and sunglasses. By preparing for a range of possibilities, you protect yourself from the unexpected, making your financial journey much safer. Avoid taking irreversible risks. One of the fundamental lessons Taleb imparts is the importance of avoiding risks that could lead to irreversible consequences. Unlike smaller, manageable risks, these are the kind that, once taken, can't be undone. Imagine taking a shortcut through a dangerous alley. If something goes wrong, there's no turning back, and the damage is done. The same applies to investments or financial decisions. Certain risks, like placing all your capital into a single high-stakes venture, could leave you with nothing to fall back on. In contrast, life offers countless opportunities to minimize risk by spreading it out. For instance, if you decide to take a trip, you wouldn't pack only one type of clothing for every possible scenario. Instead, you prepare for a variety of outcomes by packing a range of clothing options, just in case the weather turns. Similarly, when it comes to investing, spreading your money across different asset classes, stocks, bonds, real estate, etc., reduces the chance that one setback will wipe out your entire wealth. By diversifying, you're not placing all your bets on a single, risky outcome. Taleb highlights that some risks are simply too big to take, particularly those that could jeopardize your financial foundation. It's not just about avoiding losses, but about ensuring that even in the worst-case scenario, you still have a financial cushion to rely on. Think of it like driving a car. If you're going down a steep mountain road, you wouldn't rely solely on your brakes to stop. You'd also want a good safety system in place like airbags or seatbelts to make sure you're protected if things go wrong. The key takeaway is to always ensure that the risks you take are balanced with security. Set aside a portion of your savings in low-risk assets or an emergency fund. Just as you wouldn't jump off a cliff without a parachute, don't take on financial risks that could leave you financially exposed. By keeping some safety measures in place, you give yourself a chance to recover and continue on your path, even if one of your ventures doesn't go as planned. 8. Rejecting the perfect hindsight fallacy. When we look back at past events, they often seem to have unfolded in a clear, inevitable way, as if everything was part of a well-constructed plan. This is especially true for major events like market crashes or successful business ventures, which, with the benefit of hindsight, seem so obvious. It's as if we look at a finished puzzle and think, I could have put that together too. The reality, however, is that we often ignore the random factors that made those events possible, which can trick us into believing that the future can be predicted with the same level of certainty. This illusion of clarity is similar to how we judge a movie plot after we've seen the ending. Once the movie wraps up and all the twists are revealed, we feel like we could have guessed the outcome from the very start. But the suspense and confusion during the movie's progression were there for a reason. We couldn't see everything that was coming, and that's what made it interesting. The same goes for investments. Just because we can look at the past and identify patterns doesn't mean we can use that information to predict the future with certainty. Taleb warns us not to fall into the trap of perfect hindsight. If we look at the success of a startup or the rise of a particular stock, it may seem obvious in retrospect that it was bound to succeed. But when it was first launched, no one could predict the outcome, and numerous factors, many of which were random, played a role. Similarly, we tend to forget how many other startups failed or how many stocks didn't deliver. Our tendency to focus only on the success stories distorts our understanding of the true unpredictability of the future. The best way to guard against this fallacy is to remind yourself regularly that you can't predict the future based on the clarity of the past. One way to apply this in your daily life is by being cautious about investing in hot trends that look like sure bets based on their recent performance. Diversification can be an antidote to this bias. By spreading out your investments, you reduce the likelihood that you'll be overly influenced by recent past performance. Recognize that while hindsight can make events appear inevitable, the reality is far messier, and it's always wise to account for uncertainty in your plans.